All right, everyone. My name is D. Culp, as it says up on the board there. This is my presentation called How Cycling, Blogging, and Social Networking Basically Saved My Life. A little over a year ago, I looked a lot different. That would be because I am a transgender woman. So up until right around this time last year, for most of my life, in fact, I was presenting as male. That means I was living as a man. My life as a man was a confusing mess. I wandered through life not really understanding how to connect with other people because I didn't know who I was inside. Especially into my teenage years, at the onset of puberty, my emotions were constantly muddied. They were gray. I hated having traits of masculinity. I hated shaving every day. I hated having hair on my back, on my chest. You know, most boys, when they grow up, they think about having big muscles and looking like He-Man, you know, and I was just like, none of that, please, thank you. I felt cheated. I felt life had dealt me a bad card, and I dealt with it as well as I could for as long as I could, up until, as I said, last year. I turned 35 and I decided I'm out on my own, I'm my own person, I can do whatever I want, this is what I'm doing. If anyone doesn't like it. What I didn't know at the time was that I was suffering from a condition known as gender dysphoria. We didn't have the kind of access to the internet that we do now. I mean, now there's a plethora of information, but back then, nothing. We didn't have people like Laverne Cox or Caitlyn Jenner. All we had were movies about transvestites and what were then known as transsexuals. We don't really use that term anymore except to define somebody who's had the surgery, but even that's problematic because it's unfair. Because a lot of us don't want or can't get the surgery. So we kind of just stick with transgender. But those movies and TV programs, they didn't always paint us in a kind light. They were usually the butt of jokes. They were usually the villains, if you remember at the end of Silence of the Lambs, if you remember Ace Ventura, The Crying Game. These were not very nice representations of us, and we didn't have a lot of heroes or people that we could look up to. So for a long time, I didn't want anything to do with that. Watching Jerry Springer or Maury Povich, you know, I always just thought of myself as having a kink or a fetish. It was just, I was into women's clothing. And that's how a lot of people see it. They think we're just into women's clothing. And it's not true. It's not just about clothing for us. It's something deeper. It's something more fundamental. It's not a phase. It obviously does not go away. And we don't get a choice in it. We are, in fact, born this way. When I learned as I researched this over the years and read about other people's experiences, I began to see how deeply connected I was with other people, the other transgender people. I began to see them as normal. I began to see how much their lives mirrored my own, and that was important because if I was going to transition, I needed to know that in some way that I would be accepted and I wasn't just completely throwing my life away. But as I read this research, it was almost as if someone had written a paper on my life, like they were following me around, gaining an intimate knowledge of me without ever having met me, my deepest, darkest secrets. So many people, we share the same background, we share the same upbringing of, you know, anxiety, fear, shame, you know, religious people coming down on us, all this stuff just constantly berating us. And no one ever really stops to think what we feel. No one ever stops to think what makes us uncomfortable. So once I began to realize that this was what I was, there was no going back. The genie was now out of the bottle. I learned that the more I tried to resist this, as I had with my experience, that it was only going to continue to make me miserable. It was only going to be worse, and I was only going to continue spiraling downward. Because that's what happens if we don't transition, it only gets worse. Over the course of my life, I've been bullied, I've been picked on, belittled, beaten up, etc., etc. People would call me a sissy. I didn't like football, I didn't really like sports, I didn't like roughhousing, I didn't like, go figure, I didn't enjoy having older kids pick me up and throw me around, literally. I was known as the class spaz because I was such a misfit back then. I sat with the other misfits, and I went through a tremendous amount of pain and suffering just to find out who I am. And when I found out who I was, I really didn't like the answer. I mean, being transgender, living the rest of my life as a woman, it was crazy. I was throwing my life away. But I figured, if this isn't a choice, if this is something I have to do just to survive, then I'm gonna do it the best I can. I mean, after all, if things went south somewhere down the road, I could always just kill myself some other day. So the question became not should I or could I, the question became how would I do this? I knew right off the bat that this was not going to be easy. I was going to need help. This wasn't something I could just talk to my mom about because I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. And yet I couldn't ask friends because I didn't have any. I didn't know who I could trust. I didn't know who was going to accept this. I didn't know who was going to snap and try to kill me because that happens. I just didn't have anyone who I could talk to about it. I needed to meet other transgender people. I knew they were out there, but where? I needed to find my tribe. Here's how that went. Let's rewind a few years ago. Back to 2012. I had discovered the joy of long distance endurance cycling. Basically, riding a bicycle 30, 40, 60, 70 miles at a time. My longest ride was well over 110 miles in one day. And that was over the course of a 3-day trip from Hazleton to Pittsburgh. Obviously, I love cycling. And the more I rode my bike, the more interested in it I became. That's how it usually is with your passions. You become interested in something, you become passionate about it, and that drives you to continue being passionate about it. And that can often lead to other people who are also passionate about it because they see how excited you are about it, and then they want to join in. They think, oh, maybe I should get into that. I've had so many friends who bought bikes just because I'm such an advocate of it. So you find enough of these people, you get a group going, and that's your tribe. But how do you find them? For me, I was fortunate because as much as I like cycling, I also like blogging. Obviously, being here at BlogCon, you could say I'm pretty passionate about it. I would write about how many miles I did each day. I would write about what I was eating, my fitness levels, and my weight loss, because I dropped 60 pounds. It was incredible. People were encouraging me every mile that I was out there. Family members, uncles, friends, everyone. I loved having that connection, and I loved meeting local cyclists. We'd enter charity rides. I just completed the metric century for American Cancer Society. We'd go on group rides once a week. It was slowly turning around. I was slowly changing from a miserable 20-something to a relatively happy 30-something. I had cycling to thank for that because it put me in shape and it put me in contact with my body. And of course, with that came other questions. But because of blogging, because cycling, I had these passions in my life and these things that I like doing, and that helped me to meet other people. The next part of the puzzle, and this is the one that has had the most profound effect on my life, is social networking. Now, as I said, blogging had given me this wonderful platform to express myself and my passion for cycling. As I posted links to my blog on Facebook and Twitter, they started to gain popularity. And that helped me to meet other cyclists in the area, and that's how I met a man who was around the same age as me. He contacted me because he wanted to know about trails in Northeast Pennsylvania, which, as I've gone on mountain biking rides, so I knew something about that, and we started talking. As it turns out, though, the connection ran much deeper than just a shared passion in cycling. One day, as I looked over his blog and dug through his history, I saw that he was also transgender. He's a female to male. And I thought, wow, I'm going this way, and he's going this way. I bet this is someone to talk to. This person who had met me out of the blue was a trans man, and that's when I knew that I didn't have to go through this alone. I had finally found the help that I needed. I finally found someone I could talk to. Call it fate, call it statistics. I mean, the numbers show that there are a lot more of us out there than anyone knows. Because a lot of us go stealth, we hide. Once we transition, we never talk about it again. We never mention our dead name. We never mention what we were. We get all of our documents changed, everything. We go from like one closet to another, basically. So it's hard to find other people who are out there. Whatever it was that led him to my blog and to my Twitter profile, it basically never would have happened if this technology didn't exist. When I needed someone most, he was there, and he told me about a support group on Facebook. They meet locally. He gave me the courage to introduce myself, and as myself, which was a big step for me. I've tried before, and it just did not work, and this time I was going to make it work. And thanks to him, he gave me the courage to do that. I met people, and I learned that they're normal, they're common, we're not like what you see on TV, we're not like certain celebrities you may have heard of. Every one of us is different and unique and beautiful. For the first time, I didn't feel like a monster or an outcast. I felt like myself. I've been going through an incredible year of intense change. It's only been since July 2014. Mentally, physically, inside and out, I am vastly different from where I was just over a year ago. And this change has led me to wanting to reach out and help others. Transitioning was supposed to be a way to save my life, but now I find that I'm reaching out and saving others just by living my truth. I have friends now who say they don't know where they'd be if I hadn't come along, just like I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't found my friend on Twitter. I truly believe if I hadn't been into cycling and blogging and social networking, I would have never found my place in this world. I would probably be dead by now. So the question is, how do you find your tribe? For you, finding your tribe may mean increasing business, finding customers who don't yet know that they need your services. Because that happens. You might be reading about something on somebody's blog and realize that's something I could use, or I never knew that they invented this. I'm going to reach out and buy their product. So that's a good way to reach your tribe. It may mean starting a new community blog. For example, let's say you live in a high crime area and you have a community watch, or you want to be politically active and you need a campaign to launch. This, again, blogging, social networking. It may be starting a zine for your favorite bands, or it might be a blog for your band. So you have an artist enclave and you want to show off the great work that your tribe does. Blogging is a perfectly wonderful multimedia way to present that. But maybe you're a little like me and your life is heading into a crisis. Perhaps you're someone who is trapped in a bad situation. You're dealing with domestic abuse, rape, you're coping with cancer or some other deadly disease. You've got some kind of trauma in your life that you're trying to get over. Writing and blogging can help you to express the pain that you might be feeling, and it'll help you do it in a creative, productive way, which is important. Maybe it comes down to finding a private group on Facebook that you can talk with and get help from them. Maybe you're someone who is a little overweight. You're battling diabetes and you just need some encouragement just to stick with it. Blogging, social networking, these are the ways that you can help meet others going through the same struggle. They can help you and encourage you on your way. It's really just a matter of searching for local communities. For me, writing, blogging, exercising, and social networking were the ways that I saved myself. Each in their own way, they led me to where I needed to be. We hear every day how important it is to exercise regularly, and I truly believe in its benefits, not just physically, but mentally. It clears the mind. It allows you to tap into your inner creative self. And the art that you create because of that allows you to express yourself. All art is a form of communication. And that will allow you to connect with other people who know what you're doing. They know what you're going through, and they can help you and understand you. The path to authenticity is wide and varied. But once you've discovered yours, there's no end to what you can do with it. In becoming yourself, you become the light that others see. In becoming a voice for the voiceless and the oppressed, you make sure they're heard. In the end, it may well turn out that by finding and saving yourself, you end up on the path to saving others. And as we continue on that path, eventually, we might, dare I say it, save the world. So get out there. Find your tribe. They're waiting in a Facebook group or a chat room, a telephone helpline or an internet forum. Things may be bad right now, but as Dan Savage has told us, it gets better. Hang in there. You can do it. Find your tribe.